You could say that Explosive Scrapper is hard meta right now because it uses the very overtuned Grenade Kit and Explosive Straight Line for Engineer, and Scrapper also has some of the highest stability uptimes left in the game after most of the balance patch has reduced their duration on like Guardians and Rangers. So Scrapper with explosives is very good, and you utilize on this build, the version that I'm using, the Vision Sigil, which allows you to overlap a lot of damage in a short window of time and get all of them to be critical hits, allowing you to do really high burst damage. And then in between that sigil proccing, you can play the role of a scrapper and support your team with gyros and super speed and reflex. So it's a very fun build for team play, but it also has some pretty good 1v1 potential. So let's just get straight into the build. I take explosives and alchemy and scrapper. You have a lot of passive elixirs in alchemy, and then you take HGH, which will reduce the recharge of all elixirs and increase their duration by 20%. And whenever you have an elixir proc or used, you will gain 3 stacks of might for 7 seconds, which is nice for adding more damage. And your passives in this trait line are the Lesser Elixir B, which will proc whenever you are below 75% HP and you get hit every 24 seconds. It gives quite a bit of boons, including Fury, Retal, and Swiftness. And then you also have the Lesser Elixir C, which is whenever you have 2 conditions on you, you will cleanse those and turn them into boons. And all of these are elixirs, so they will proc all of the HGH stuff. And then you have Elixir E, which gives you a 3000 barrier and 4 seconds of protection whenever you are hit below 33% HP. And that's a 48-second cooldown, so that's going to proc a lot of times when you really need it. So it's a really nice trait. And I also take Protection Injection, which gives you 3 seconds of prot whenever you are disabled on a 30-second cooldown. I like this because whenever you're disabled, that's usually when you're most vulnerable. You can take Invigorating Speed, which will give you a decent amount of vigor, but you can't really control it that much because the only thing that really gives you swiftness is your heal skill and your Lesser Elixir B. And the uptime on that is like, 10 seconds from both of these, so it's not amazing. The application is mostly important for this trait, but it's up to you whether you want more dodges, which is pretty nice for the explosive straight line, or you just want to be a little bit more passive and feel that when you get CC'd, you'll be able to survive it. So in explosives, you have Explosive Entrance, which gives you a kind of like wide AoE explosion on the target whenever you enter combat on your first hit. And whenever you dodge, it will reapply that buff on you, which will make your next attack do an Explosive Entrance again. And that does 700 base damage, which is pretty high. And it can be dodged and blocked and stuff like that, but it does add quite a bit of damage. Then you have Lesser Grenade Barrage, which will basically make your grenade kit usable. So whenever you say that grenade kit is like really strong, you have to take into account that you do need to use this trait to enable it. And even then, it's still very strong, and it gives you basically a 100% velocity increase, making it very easy to land it on people even when they're moving. And I will show you guys how to do that later as well, how to land them very easily. And a radius increase, which is kind of the same effect. So another thing is whenever you use your heal skill, it will do a lesser grenade barrage on your location, which can do a little bit of damage, but in general, you want it for the velocity and radius increase on your grenade kit. Then you have Steel Pack Powder, which makes all of your explosions cause vulnerability. So you have Explosive Entrance is a explosion. You have all of your grenades are explosions. So each grenade skill is like 3 grenades, and then Grenade Barrage is 6. So each one of those will give 1 vulnerability. So each time you land your grenades, right, that's 3 vulnerability. So that stacks up and can give you a lot of damage because of the Shaped Charge trait, which is all of your vulnerability will give another 0.5% extra damage. So instead of doing 1% extra damage with 1 vuln, you do 1.5% extra damage. And then you have Blast Shield, which will increase your vitality based on a percentage of your power, which is really nice because Scrapper has lower vitality passively, and I take no vitality on this build. So it allows you to be very aggressive while getting a little bit of tankiness there, and you'll gain a little bit of barrier when you proc Explosive Entrance. Then you have Big Boomer, which is really good for your sustain because whenever you land an explosion, so your grenades are very good at keeping this uptime, but whenever you land an explosion, you gain a 300 heal for 3 seconds. So it can be like a 100 heal per second when you're constantly proccing this. And then it gives you a 10% buff to foes who are lesser health percentage than you. So even though your health is a little bit low on the actual value, you can be higher than others if you get their health below your percentage. And that's kind of easy to do because this build has a lot of barrier on it. Then you have Scrapper. Scrapper gives you the ability to use Function Gyro, which is, in the past, it's been basically a support skill only, but now it also does a lot of damage. So it does 900 base damage if you just use it. So it's a 25-second cooldown. So you can actually weave in some damage if you're not expecting to use it for stomping or rezzing your allies. So that's pretty good. And System Shocker will make your Function Gyro daze all enemies that it hits. And that's really good for the situations that you want to use your Function Gyro in, because if you're rezzing an ally, then you want to stop the stomp. And if you're stomping an enemy, you want to stop the rezzers. So Function Gyro dazing is very, very good for the situations that you're using it in. And whenever you disable a foe, you'll gain barrier. So if you disable people with your Function Gyro, you'll gain barrier. If you disable them with your Hammer 5, you'll gain barrier. So it's pretty good. And you also have Speed of Synergy, which will give you super speed whenever you use your heal and your heal tool belt skill. So my heal tool belt skill is an elixir, which when I use it, I need to use it on the ground and it'll hit me and allies potentially, but it'll only give me super speed. And I can just toss it out like this, and I can even give it to someone else, but it'll still give me the super speed. So if I want to support someone else, I'll still get the super speed and they won't get it because it's only self super speed. However, Elixir H will give super speed to nearby allies when you use your actual heal skill. So this build has very low uptime on swiftness, but you have a lot of super speed in the build to make up for that with the Tossed Elixir H, Tossed Elixir U, and my heal skill technically gives the same amount of duration of swiftness as super speed. And this is kind of good because you can't really strip super speed. You can strip swiftness, but not super speed. And super speed in general just makes you move really fast. So it gives you a little bit of mobility because this build is actually very low on mobility otherwise. And then you have Object in Motion. This will make you do 5% more damage per instance of either stability, swiftness, or super speed. So if you have all three, you do 15% more damage. And as I said, you get quite a bit of super speed, not that much swiftness, but you also have quite a bit of stability on this build because of Elixir U having an 8-second duration and your defense field having a 7-second duration. So you can get quite a bit of damage there. And then you have Impact Savant, which converts 15% of all damage that you deal into barrier. And then it'll reduce your vitality, but we make up for that with the explosive trait line and the durability rune. But this is such a very good trait because there's no limit on how much barrier you can get. So say I'm in the middle of like a Zerg, look at all the barrier that I'm getting here. It's just stacking up, and it gives you so much sustain over time, and it scales very well with the damage that you deal. So the more aggressive your build, the more value you get from this trait, and in turn the less tanky you need to go in your damage. So it just kind of feels good to be aggressive on this build because you're getting sustained back at the same time. And obviously the more people you're hitting, the more value you get. And then you have Adaptive Armor, which increases the barriers that you receive by 15%. So you get quite a bit of barrier with the Elixir E, Impact Savant, and your Bulwark Gyro. So that's really nice. And you'll also receive 20% less condition damage while you have barrier. And it's very easy to have just any type of barrier on you because any kind of damage you do will give you barrier. And this is also really nice because this build lacks in condition cleanse. So this is kind of like how you deal with conditions. You just sort of tank them with your barrier and hope that they don't kill you. And then obviously I do have a cleansing sigil still, but that's really my only Condi cleanse besides Lesser Elixir C. So those are the traits. The equipment that I use is full Zerker armor with durability runes. The toughness is really nice on Scrapper because it scales well with barrier, because your barrier scales in actual value with healing power. But if you go for healing power, you're doing less damage, which means less barrier because you're doing less from Impact Savant. So in actuality, you want to go for as much damage as possible to get your barrier up. And then you want to have toughness because that kind of counters the enemy from getting your barrier down faster. With power damage, of course. And the Rune of Durability also gives you a lot of protection and resistance, which is nice because you're low on the Condi cleanse for this build, so that 1 second of resistance sometimes will save you. And it'll give you 10% more maximum health, so combined with the trait in explosives, it allows you to not run any vitality on the build, even though going into Scrapper reduces your vitality. So for my weapon, I take Power, Precision Ferocity, so more Zerker, with the Vision and Cleansing Sigil. So Cleansing Sigil is very important since it's your only Condi cleanse, and you'll proc that by going in and out of your grenade kit, since you can't swap weapons on Engineer. And then you have the Vision Sigil, and there's a lot of play around the Vision Sigil because you can kind of like stack up a lot of your damage. What it'll do is whenever you swap weapons, or in this case swap into or out of the grenade kit, it will give you 3 seconds of 100% crit chance. And because I'm using, well, I have a Berserker back piece, I have Knight's accessories, Cavalier rings, and amulet. So as you can see here, there's really not that much precision on the rest of my gear. So I use that 100% crit chance from the Vision Sigil to allow me to get a lot of power and ferocity and toughness, so getting a lot of damage and survivability while also being able to crit really often and hard. So how you use the Vision Sigil is very important to the build. So say I'm in combat here, and I'm going to start out usually with a Thunderclap from afar. That'll put me in combat usually. And then what I can do is I can throw grenades, and to go into the grenade kit will proc the Vision Sigil. So my Thunderclap will be ticking its AoE with the Vision Sigil, which I've kind of like precasted into it, because it only lasts 3 seconds, right? You don't want to be using cast times when the vision sigil is up, because you want to be landing and stacking up those pulsing AoEs beforehand. So I'll do something like Thunderclap into Grenade Barrage into Swap. There's the vision sigil, and as you can see, tons of damage going out because it's all critting and it's all stacking up together. And it's really important on multi-hitting abilities like Grenade Barrage, because they'll all crit, so you can get the maximum amount of damage. And as you can see, sometimes it'll hit for like 10,000 damage on Grenade Barrage, so that's really good. And I don't have any modifiers up right now, so yeah, that did like 6k there with no modifiers. Yeah, Vision Sigil, really good. And because your grenade kit is an instant cast skill, you can like precast your grenades into it. So like say I want to land my Grenade Barrage, what I can do is I throw it out and then I swap to my grenade kit while it's in the air, and the hit will happen after the proc of my Vision Sigil. So it allows me to not waste the Vision Sigil while still getting all of the damage that I want. So yeah, that's really important to the build. And I'll talk a little bit more about the combos that you can do with Vision Sigil later in the skills section. But yeah, that's pretty much the stats. So again, I go full Zerk on the armor and weapon on the back piece, and then Knight's trinkets, or sorry, Knight's accessory, Cavalier ring, and Cavalier amulet. And the food that I use is the saffron loaf of bread, which will give you minus 20% incoming condition duration, so more of that like passive condition shrugging off effect while I have barrier up to survive the conditions. And it can sometimes allow you to get off some of the lower duration conditions off you before you actually use your cleanse, so you can actually cleanse the things you want to cleanse. And then you also have minus 20% incoming damage while stunned, knocked down, or knocked back. You do have a lot of stability on this build, but if you get corrupted or boon ripped and you get focused, it is nice for you to have this to prevent you from getting focused, because in the situations where you do have stability, it's hard for people to focus you. In the situations that you don't have stability, it's easy for them to focus you. So this kind of like is a very good food to allow you to build up some of your weak areas on this build. So it's kind of nice. I also have the orange clove cheesecake if you really want to go hard, because this will, instead of giving you the minus 20% damage while stunned or disabled, it'll give you concentration and 33% chance to gain might on crit. And that can increase your burst combos a lot, because during your burst combos you're doing these Grenade Barrage hits where everything is critting and you're hitting multiple times, so you're gaining a lot of might during those short windows of time, which can add to your burst. And then the concentration gives you more might duration, more prot duration, and other stuff. So orange clove cheesecake or saffron loaf of bread. And then for the sharpening stone, I just use the free ones that you get from skirmish chests, compact hardened sharpening stone. And that's pretty much the equipment. The hammer skills don't really do that much damage in comparison to the grenade kit, but they have a lot of utility. So the auto attack is going to give might and vulnerability, which is kind of nice, but it doesn't do that much damage. The 2 skill though does quite a bit of damage in melee range. It creates this like whirl thing that will reflect projectiles, and it's an explosion, so it'll do 2 vulnerability and it will keep your big boomer going. And it's sort of a set it and forget it kind of skill, so you'll cast it and then the second hit will kind of like happen as you're allowed to start doing other skills. So I like to use this skill with your Vision Sigil a lot, so Electro Whirl and then go into Grenade Kit and then use my 2 skill, and that's a really nice combo. Rocket Charge is a series of 3 leaps at the target, and they will all evade and do a decent amount of damage, but it's kind of clunky and has some vulnerability frames after each leap. And the aftercast of the final leap is quite clunky as well. So how I deal with this is I stow the weapon using the grenade kit. So as an engineer, you can't swap weapons in combat unless you're in a kit. And when you're in a kit, you can swap weapon and that will drop it. And that will also stow any ability you're using. So you can do Rocket Charge, Grenade Kit, and then swap weapon at the final hit, and that will stow the aftercast and allow you to keep doing other skills. So you want to just get used to doing that every time you Rocket Charge and get used to that mechanic so that you will get the most out of everything. And then you have Shock Shield, which is a very defensive skill because it's a 2-second block, and it will hit foes in front of you and give you barrier each hit, and it'll also give vulnerability. So it's a little bit offensive as well, but mostly it'll just give you a good amount of barrier while also blocking for you. So you have a lot of evade and block already, as you can see on Hammer, so it's a very defensive set. And then finally you have Thunderclap. Thunderclap is a very long range, 1200 range AoE that's a stun for 1 second on the first hit, and then it will pulse a pretty decent amount of damage over time. And it's also a lightning field, so you can use your 3 skill in it, and that'll give you Daze, which will proc System Shocker, which will give you more barrier. So that's very nice, but generally I don't like to use Thunderclap with Rocket Charge because I'm not in melee range all the time when I'm using Thunderclap. But it can be nice for like down situations to use Thunderclap on it, and you get a lot of dazes out to stop people from rezzing. I like to use like grenades and stuff into the stun, but the stun's only 1 second anyways, so they usually dodge right after the stun. So you can decide to use the Rocket Charge in it as well. And then you have your utilities. So Elixir H is a elixir, so it gains the HGH synergies. It's a 20-second cooldown, and you gain protection for 3 seconds, and you'll gain regen, swiftness, might, and super speed. So it's just a very reliable heal, low cast time, gives you a lot of sustain over time. And then you have, I'll talk about the grenade kit in a bit, but then you have Bulwark Gyro. So Bulwark Gyro gives you barrier, and it will give barrier to allies nearby as well by redirecting. Your utilities are Elixir H, which is an elixir, so it's going to scale with HGH, and that makes it a 20-second cooldown, which is really good because most other heal skills are 30 to 25-second cooldowns. So it's a lot of sustain because of the low cooldown, and it just gives you reliable boons like regen and protection. The tool belt skill for Elixir H is a toss skill, and it will give protection, regen, vigor, and then might. And then obviously both of these skills will give super speed depending on which one you use and who it lands on. And then you have Bulwark Gyro. This will give you a barrier on usage, and then it will pulse extra barrier over time. And then any ally who is within the area of effect you can see here will convert some of the damage that they take to you. So it can be dangerous in some situations. If you're both taking damage, then you're going to be taking a lot more damage. So you have to be careful with that, but in a way you can use it to kind of like convert some of your health into your ally's health. So it's kind of like a heal. And while you're doing this, you're gaining barrier, which is nice. So this is also a lightning field, which can be used with your rocket charge, but generally I don't like to use bulwark gyro with rocket charge because it's giving you barrier and then you're evading. You want to use the barrier when you're not evading. And then the tool belt skill is defense field, and this is a really strong ability because it's a low cooldown, 25-second, kind of like dome, and it will block all projectiles that try to pass through it, and it will also give you and nearby allies stability for 7 seconds, 3 stacks. And that's really good for making plays. Like, you can put down your function gyro and that'll be stomping or reviving your allies, and then you can put defense field by standing next to it and giving it stability so that it can stomp, and then you can cleave meanwhile. And just in general, a 25-second low cooldown stability on such a long duration is going to allow you to shrug off a lot of CCs, so it's very good. And then you have Elixir U. Elixir U is a stun break that gives more stability, so you've got 2 stacks of stability there for 8 seconds. It'll give vigor, and it will give you 8 seconds of quickness. So that is quite a bit of quickness. You can't really make too much use of it because you don't have a lot of precision, but it is nice for the stun break and stability, because if you compare this to like Elixir S, which you absolutely can use, that's a stun break that kind of like prevents you from making any actions other than stomping or rezzing. And while you will get a lot of value from that in some situations, I feel like the stun break is a lot better, and the tool belt skill is also better because it gives you super speed instead of stealth, and the build likes to get as much super speed as possible because it's low on swiftness. And then you get your stealth from sneak gyro anyways. So this is a gyro that will, when you cast it, it gives a smoke field that will also pulse stealth, and then you can use your rocket charge in it that will give you extra stealth. It'll give your allies stealth pulse as well, so you can use it for rezzing and stuff like that, which is very nice. The tool belt skill for Scrapper is not going to be related to your elite skill. It's just going to be function gyro, and it's going to do, as I said, a 900 range kind of AoE. It will put down a lightning field, which you can use your rocket charge in for days. I generally like to use rocket charge into function gyro or my hammer 5 because those are damage oriented ones, so you put your evade on top of the damage ones. And then depending on who is in the down state, you will create gyros which will stomp or revive allies or enemies. And you'll do multiple, so if there's one ally that's down, then you will res them, and if there's an enemy, then you will stomp them, both at the same time. So it's very good for those key downstate situations for making plays. And the recharge will be increased per gyro that it summons, but that's not really a big deal. I mean, in some situations you could decide, okay, I only want to res this guy and not stomp this guy, so you just kind of lean it off to the side and don't hit the other guy. But yeah, generally it's not that big of a deal to go less greedy on the cooldown there, because if you win the situation because you just overkill it, then that's generally going to be enough for you to follow through with the fight and not need to use it a second time. It'll also deal quite a bit of damage though on a low cooldown, so if you think that there isn't going to be a situation where you'll need to stomp or revive an ally during that time, then you can just throw it out for damage and the rocket charge days. So that's kind of like a decision you have to make, but In general, I don't like to use it for that because I like to play more supportive and save my revive or my or you can even just use it as a daze, right? You can use it to interrupt someone. So, I mean, there's a lot of versatility with the skill for sure. But, yeah, that's pretty much the utilities except for Grenade Kit. Grenade Kit is very interesting because it at first seems like it's very hard to use, but there are a few options you want to enable to allow it to actually be very easy to use. So first of all, you're going to want to have enable free camera or use free camera. And this will allow you to move your camera freely as you're looking in any direction. So your grenades can be used in any direction. And that means you can be kiting and throwing them behind you, which allows you to get a lot of damage on people regardless of the situation. And then you'll want to have instant ground targeting enabled. So I normally play with fast with range indicator, and the difference there is it will put down like a green circle when I press the skill down, and then when I let go of it, it will cast the skill. However, the skill has a different effect than instant as well, because instant not only puts out the skill faster because it goes out as soon as you press the key down, so there's no delay between you releasing the key. It also has an effect where it will change the location of the ground target halfway into the skill. So what I mean by that is when I cast a skill here, I put it down and then I let go, and I can move my cursor all over the place like this, and it just still goes into the place where I let go of the skill. So it doesn't change. But when I do this with instant cast, you'll see that I can do it, and I'm moving my cursor all over. I press it here, and as you can see, I press it here, and then I move it over there, and it goes over there. I press it over here, and I move it over here, it goes over there. So there's the point where you start casting the skill, and then there's the point where the skill has confirmed where the ground target location is at a later time, and then after that confirmed point, it will put it at that location. So what that means is you have more time to decide where the enemy is going to be to lead them on with your attack. And it allows you to be a lot more accurate with the skill and to be a lot more quick because grenades are very spammy. So say I'm being chased by someone and I want to land my skill right on them, then I kind of like just put my cursor on them. So it's not like leading the enemy so much as just putting your cursor on the enemy, because there's a completely different mechanic there. One is trying to use like predictions, and the other is just simply putting your cursor on the target. So it makes it a lot easier to use grenades, and yeah, as grenades are one of the highest power creep skills right now. So yeah, that's an important tip to making your grenades land. And the grenade skills themselves, the auto attack in Grenade Kit is just a decent amount of damage, but the 2 skill is about double the damage, so you generally want to use this before you use the auto attack always. And it does a little bit of bleed, but these are all explosions, so they'll be proccing your big boomer, and explosions will give vuln. So the 2 skill is a very low cooldown and lots of damage, so I generally use that one first in the Grenade Kit. You also have your flash grenade, which does no damage, but it will blind. The blind is kind of nice because I don't take the flashbang trait, so I don't get as much blind. So you do want to probably not throw this out as much as you think though, because it does no damage, and just generally doing damage is better than doing no damage, even if you get blind. And then you have frost grenade. This does a little bit less than shrapnel grenade, but it will chill, and the chill is very strong because it can stack up. So like a 6-second chill if you hit all 3 grenades on the same target, and it does quite a bit of damage. Then you have Poison Grenade. Does the same amount of power damage, but it will also do 3 stacks of poison per grenade. So if you hit all 3, that's a 9 poison, and the duration is quite long. So a 8-second poison that does 300 damage on a power build, that's quite a lot. And in downstate situations, obviously the poison is really good for preventing reses. So generally you want to do like a function gyro, and then you'll do your poison grenade to slow their res, and then stomp while doing that. So this is just really good. So I use generally the 2 skill first, then I'll spam out the 4 and the 5, and then I'll just spam the auto attack, and then use the 2, and then I'll go back into hammer. And then the tool belt skill is Grenade Barrage. Grenade Barrage is just a better auto attack. So it does 400 damage per grenade hit. So it does quite a bit of damage when you have your vision sigil up, because all 6 of those critting, it can do up to 10,000 damage sometimes. And this is going to be your biggest burst skill on the build. So you really want to make sure not only does it land, but you're going to be always wanting your vision sigil to be up when you're using it. And as you can see there, 6,000 damage on, you know, a target that had no other vulnerability, and I didn't have any modifiers on me. So it's a very strong skill to use, and it's 25-second cooldown. This first clip is going to be a 1v1 versus a Spellbreaker. They can be very dangerous because they have a lot of damage and Boon Rip and CC, and a lot of my stability can get ripped and my barrier can get destroyed very easily. And since I don't have a lot of stun breaks, it's very dangerous to get my stability ripped. However, I have a lot of range damage with grenades, and the warrior really has to be in melee to do their damage. So that allows me to land my grenades very easily because warriors have to basically be on top of you. So it makes them a lot more predictable. I take a lot of damage from this rampage here, but afterwards I'm able to resustain with my heal skill, and at this point I want to trade damage always. I never want to take damage for free. So whenever they're going to hit me, I want to at least hit them back, because not only will that progress their health bar, but it will also give me barrier, which will prevent me from taking as much damage and essentially result in me winning the trade. Because if I'm doing damage and they're doing damage but I'm healing, then they will basically be reducing their health faster than me. Of course, warriors have better heal skill than me, but they also have a lot more damage. So it is a very interactive matchup, but using the grenades gives me a big advantage because, as I said, you can land them very easily and they do tons of damage. So that allows me to win this 1v1. This is a more group-oriented fight. As I said, Scrapper is not really like a hard DPS. With this build, you do a lot of burst, but mostly you're going to want to be supporting your allies. So here you can see I use my Sneak Gyro to go in for a res, and that allows me to get the res, and I didn't even need to use my gyro there because they couldn't cleave the stealth body, and stability is really nice as well for allowing you to get reses. And as I've said, this is going to be my last build video for a really long time because I feel like, you know, we've pretty much gone everywhere. We did a build video for every elite spec in PvP. We did a build video for every elite spec in World v World roaming. So we're going to be moving on towards some new ideas now. But yeah, if you do want to check out all of my builds, there are going to be 2 playlists, which you can find on my channel, the World v World builds and the PvP builds. So yeah, stay tuned for more content. We'll be exploring the limits of Guild Wars 2 and also doing some topic-based videos as well. And of course, I'm going to resume becoming a thief main again. So stay tuned for that. And as always, like and subscribe the video and leave a comment down below. I know this video isn't too creative. Usually most of my videos are builds that I create myself, but this is a build that I actually got from an engineer named I'm Not Cheesy, and you can check out their channel on YouTube if you want. But I added a little bit of a change to the build, and it's just a little bit more tanky and has a little bit more support for your team.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.